Hey everyone, Isaiah here, and welcome to another episode of Let's Make Comics. As you can see here, we're back to another page of Trantaltown. This was actually the first page I got to do after finishing up the Genesis Blue project. Unfortunately, there were some really cool pages that I would have liked to talk about for that project, but I didn't record them, so that's kind of unfortunate. But hey, we're gonna have a bunch of cool moments in Trantaltown. So I was pretty excited about this page because it had actually been a very, very long time since I drew Alicia in this comic. For a while, it had been focusing on Biggles and Veronica, and I really missed drawing this character. So I wrote in this scene that takes place before we cut to another part of the story because she's chasing down a monster and she's going to run into the monster. I wrote this scene in really just to have an excuse to draw Alicia again. So I think the scene only lasts about 2 or 3 pages before we cut away to a few other characters in the situation that are driving the plot a little bit more than she is at this point, or she doesn't really end up driving the plot at all in this story arc. But I miss drawing her, and I had a whole lot of fun here. This is a running. She's running here, of course, and I ended up having a lot of fun when I did another project called Help Wanted. In issue 2 of that one, the main character, Cuff Puppy, runs an awful lot, a little bit too much for my taste. I felt like almost every page he was running, and so I ended up having to think of new ways to draw the run that portrayed how that character was feeling at the time. And I feel as if that kind of thing helped me a lot here for this particular scene, especially this first one that I'm inking here. I think I got a really fun, energetic run going on here. This is also one of those times where I got to have a lot of fun with the kind of spacious, weird, topsy-turvy world that is the Creeper Zone here. I think it really helped sell just kind of the perspective of the shot a little bit. The more I worked on this project, the more I got really disappointed with what I decided for the design of the Creeper Zone, and I think I probably mentioned that the last time that we were on a Trantaltown episode. Just kind of how I felt that I wish I decided to have a little bit more going on than just this weird, spacious area with weird paths or whatnot. But this is one scene where I really felt that it came to life in the way that I had imagined it. And here there's a giant ruler in the background, and after drawing this page, I was a little saddened that I decided to put a giant ruler here, because I mentioned the last time that we had talked about Transaltown is that because this area is so full of space, I also came up with the idea that things that get lost here can sometimes become gigantic, and that really helped me set a scene whenever I was jumping from scene to scene. And I really feel as if the ruler is a really good object, and it's a shame that I ended up wasting it there, because I think it only gets used for one shot. It might appear more in this short scene that we're with in Alicia, but I kind of felt like it was one of the stronger objects that said that this is a space between space that's in a school. I think that's one of those cool objects that really sold it, and was also a little easier to draw. Later on, I use a backpack, and I felt as if I had a little bit of trouble with setting that in the area and not trying to give it too much focus and attention and still feel like the object that it was. But I'll talk about that more when we get to one of those pages here there in the future. I really like her face here in this scene, and the hand too. The hand look was really fun to draw there. You can see in there in the scene, she's jumping. So I decided to put some motion lines there. But in general, I kind of try to avoid using motion lines as much as possible until I kind of feel as if I have to for certain things. Like you'll see in the last panel, I kind of want to convey that she was flipping. But of course, in a comic book, you get one shot. A lot of times, well, I'll talk about that when I get there. But I try to just get the pose to sell the kind of motion that I'm going for here. But because I wanted it to feel like she was jumping off of that path, I went ahead and drew in those lines there. Now that I'm looking at it, there's probably some better ways I could have drawn those motion lines to convey it a little bit more. But yeah, I try to not draw those unless I feel as if I have to in order to sell what's going on there. Like you see there in that first scene that we were drawing earlier, I kind of feel as if the run motion really sells itself on its own without having to draw something like speed lines or something like that. I think here I actually drew the pattern on the beast here wrong. I think that pattern that I put on the bottom of the tail is supposed to go on top, but those things happen, I guess. At least it ends up looking a little better for the shot to have that kind of piece of its or that shape of its body kind of breaking things up a little bit more, because it totally would have gotten lost if it was on the top of the tail. But I think the proper design for it is that it goes from, because it's there on the back of his body and it's supposed to go in the same area of the tail, so it's definitely in the wrong spot. So I felt that a giant calculator would be a fun little setting for this world, to have something to take place on top of it. Now this whole scene doesn't last very long, so not a whole lot happens on top of the calculator, but when I was thinking about this area, I was thinking that it would be really cool for more scenes to take place inside of or on top of giant objects. And later on, we get a giant paper house where a lot of the scenes end up taking place in. But for the rest of the scenes that are going on, I didn't really feel as if I felt like being more in the open space was the appropriate place to be, because a lot of these characters are kind of running into each other as they're looking for each other. But for this short scene, I thought, this needs to take place someplace kind of cool and thematic for this area, and so I settled on the idea of a giant calculator. And you see there in the background, or behind Alicia there, I have the motion lines to convey that she's flipping there on the scene. Now there are other ways that you can do that. You can like have ghost images of her flipping there in the scene, but I wanted to draw the calculator. I thought that would be the key set piece here in the scene, and so I kind of felt like trying to focus too much on that kind of thing would end up getting a little lost. That calculator that it would get a little lost, and that's what I really want to have a lot of fun drawing there. So instead I settled on these circular motions on top of the motion lines. I'm not sure if that really conveys that she's flipping, but there it is. I love that confident smirk on her face. Alicia has a lot of fun fighting these monsters. The giant calculator too was kind of refreshing to draw because once again, this creeper zone, space in between space kind of idea. Everything's just kind of very spacious, and there's not too many opportunities to draw some geometry. So yeah, I had some fun, and it's kind of funny talking about geometry when I'm drawing a ruler there. Her jacket kind of feels like it's flowing a bit there. I never really thought of the whether or not there would be wind in this strange area, but hey, it looks like it's there. Yeah, I could have worked a little harder on that foot. I really feel as if probably should have come up with a. I should have actually designed this monster here with a sheet that I could reference to, because I remember later on when it shows up again that it feels very different from the first few times that I drew it. Unfortunately, that monster just didn't come out as consistent as I would have liked. And I could have sworn that at one point I only gave it 4 fingers, but it looks like here on this page it has 5. Yeah, I don't remember enough details about this creature, and I really should have had something on hand to reference. I don't even think that I did any sketch work for that thing in my sketchbooks before drawing it on a page for the first time, which is that's a bad habit. You should really take some time to figure things out like that. But this monster ends up not being as big of a part of the story as a lot of the other characters that I put a lot of design focus on. And by the time I got to this thing, I was like, oh yeah, this thing is here, and what does it look like? I guess we'll figure it out. And as a result, as you'll see in some of the other pages that we have recorded, I don't feel as if the creature looks very consistent. And again, I just love drawing the vice principal here. He's got really fun Really fun eyebrows and a lot of very curved shapes that are just a joy to draw. And the other teacher back there, Mr. Sandman, I love drawing his nose. It's this big old nose with these curious angular shapes to it that's really fun. And he's got a lot more angles to his face than the vice principal there. So they make two good characters for having some good contrast too on this page here. And we're about reaching the end of this page. That's all the time that we have here for today. I want to thank you guys for watching, and feel free to like, comment, and subscribe and all that good stuff. Check you out next time.